Follow the conversation. This is Afternoons on the Dove.
Well, good afternoon. Welcome to Afternoons on the Dove. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and I'm delighted to have in the studio with me today our producer, Polina, is here to help me with this interview. And this is an exciting interview because you have put together a very special interview, Polina. Arlene Pellicane is with us. And what drew you to this topic?
Well, the title of her book,
okay.
31 Days to a Younger You. And I was just wanted to know what am I supposed to do to become younger, but then I read a little bit about Arlene. And do you want to introduce her? Do you want me to?
You go ahead and introduce her.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
Arlene, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Well, you do have quite a credentials here, but I just want to say that you're an author, a speaker. You've been featured on the Hour of Power, the 700 Club. You have authored several books. You're a mother, which gives a lot of experience for you as well, and for your books. You've been associate producer for Turning Point Television with David Jeremiah. And so, there's just so many things we can talk about you, but I want to go to your book. So what made you write that book?
As I looked around, a lot of women are interested in looking younger. So I thought, there's something about this. And I myself will be turning 40 this year, and I have a 1-year-old. So when you do the math, I thought, man, when she is 20 years old, I'm going to be 60. And I don't know about you, but when I was 20, 60 sounded really old. So I thought to myself, I want to be young for her so that when she graduates, we could still, hike or do something. I don't have to be in a wheelchair following her. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I thought, how can I continue to be young for my kids? And how can I also help other women to live younger? Because we're living longer. And so what can we do to make the most of those years?
Your book, Arlene, says 31 days to a younger you, but you say no surgery, no diets, no kidding. And that flies in direct conflict with where a lot of the culture is going. Have the surgery and get on a diet.
That's right. A lot of times, we as believers are countercultural, and the book tries to present a balance of both and. So a lot of times Christians think, well, it's all about the heart. So, why should I go to the gym or eat? My body's passing away anyway. And that's not the approach either that the book takes. But the opposite is also not true, that if I just fix the outside, if I just get plastic surgery, go on my 27th diet, that's going to fix everything. That's not going to fix anything either. So the book really tries to take aim at both the heart and the body, because the Lord created them both and they both work in tandem. And if we can get our bodies working the best that they can, we can serve the Lord longer and with more joy.
So how do you prioritize this? Do you go body first or soul first?
I would go soul first, because change happens from the inside out. My daughter, she's 4 now, but when I was writing the book, she was 2. And I remember we went to SeaWorld, and we live in San Diego, and she looked at herself at a full-length mirror and just looked at herself and said, "Good." And I said, "Did you just say that you looked good?" And she said, "Mom, I look good." And, that's how it starts for women. We usually, after we're about, a teenager, we don't look in the mirror and say, "Good." So it begins with a woman looking in the mirror and saying, "You know what? This is good. No matter what's staring back at me, this is good, because this is what the Lord has created." So it begins with an acknowledgement and a realization, I'm God's child. God thinks I'm beautiful. God made me special. And it comes out of that. Because if that's not there, everything else is kind of a superficial Band-Aid.
Why 31 days?
31 days, because, if I were to say to you, you know what, Polina, let's go ahead and give up that soda for the rest of your life. I don't even know if you drink soda, but, if someone hears that, they think, I can't do that. But if I say, you know what, for 31 days, for 1 month, would you try this? Most people would say, you know what, I'll try that. And then at the end of the 31 days, you can say, did that work or did that not work? What did I like? What didn't I like? And you can evaluate. So it gives women a doable goal, and it also gives them some, an impetus to start. Because how many of us, we have all these good intentions, right? We want to lose weight. We want to exercise, spend quality time with our families. But unless there are specific action steps, those things are wishful thinking and they don't really happen. happen. The 31 days, setting aside 31 days, helps a woman say, hey, for these 31 days, I'm going to try to improve my mind, my heart, and my body.
Arlene, I want to come back to, you've got the book basically in three parts. You deal with the heart, the mind, and the body. And let's just kind of go through the book the way you laid it out, the heart, because I think the culture is saying, work on the body and everything else falls into place. But the heart, I mean, are you dealing with your relationship with God? Is that where it starts?
It starts with that hot heart for God. I have kids, and it always amazes me that they're so excited about God and so excited to pray to Him. And I think, man, if we could capture that and learn that from children, to have that hot heart, the obedient, the trusting heart toward the Lord, and it does begin there. Because think about it, if you've been a Christian for a while, when you were a young Christian, your heart was so like, wow, this is so great that Jesus saved me. There was that love and that newness there, and it brought youth and vitality to your life, no matter what age you were when you came to know Christ. So coming back to that first love has a lot to do with having a young heart.
What about those who, how we are, we look in the mirror and we say, well, okay, I don't look so good. That's okay. Is that okay to think that?
Well, it depends on the woman and the circumstance, etc. If I think it is good for a woman to be at peace with herself, to know, what, there's so many, they interview supermodels, who are paid so much money for their bodies, and yet when interviewed, they talk about, they're negative about their nose, or, something is out of place, their feet are too big. So women are constantly dealing with this barrage of, I'm not good enough, I don't look like the model. So you don't want to heap that on. You want to be able to look in the mirror and say, yes, I'm okay with how I am. This is all right with me. On the same token, if you are an unhealthy weight, if your doctor has told you, you need to lose some weight for optimum health, if there are things perhaps your husband has said that, of course, women are very defensive about what their husband says, but let's say your husband says, honey, I really love when you wear red. I have a friend like this. And let's say she says, I hate red. I'm never wearing red, So there are changes that we could make, external changes that we could say, I'm open to having a makeover. I'm open to having, someone give me some advice here. And then also health changes. So there's a point of saying, yes, I'm okay with how I am, but then not to just sit back and let gravity take its toll, but you can fight back. You could say, they say you gain a pound every year after you turn 40. So this is depressing news. So what can you do to push back against that? So there's the contentment within yourself, but also that's something in yourself that says, why can't I get better in this area?
So what can you do to push it off?
The weight? Well, one thing, not to buy a size bigger. So you know what it's like.
No, I don't want a size bigger. I don't want to gain that pound. What can I do not to gain it?
Right. So a lot of people will say, things are starting to get tight, right? Your pants are starting to get tight. Everything's starting to get tight. And after a while, they say, I better go get a new pair of pants. So no, don't do that. Instead, say, things are getting tight. I've got to change. If I don't go to the gym, then I need to join a gym. If I go to a gym, then I need to change up my workout routine. Something's not working. If I realize I'm eating too much, then there's some swaps I need to make. So let your clothes, I find that to be a very practical and easy thing, that when your clothes tell you are gaining weight, instead of buying new clothes, stick with those clothes like they're your ally, and then work within that waistline to, it's our eating. When we eat out, how easy is that to fill up on bread? And for my husband and I, we figure the bread is free, like eat as much as you can. So to try to fight that battle in what you eat and how much you're moving, so you stay in those pants. And if you are just resolute, like, I will not buy a size bigger, and I will do whatever it takes to stay in this size, you will hold your ground.
All right. Arlene, what do you say to women where this is, they're not only battling the bulge, if I can put it that way, but maybe they're battling low self-esteem, and the combination of the two is not giving them the fortitude to press through this barrier?
Yes. I would look at the company that this woman keeps. If you are with friends who either are the ones that are telling you, it's just this way, you're gonna gain weight, we're never going to look like these models. If you're with a lot of friends that reinforce these negative ideas, this negative thinking, you may want to rethink how much time you spend with them, because we as women, we're easily swayed by what's around us. And so to surround yourself with positive people and positive input, listening to shows like this, listening to radio stations like yours, putting positive information in. I heard about a woman who is a wife who is trying to think more positively about her husband. So she would get up in the morning, and the first thing she would do is she would write down 5 things that her husband did right yesterday. So it could just be, he went to work, he helped me put the kids to bed, whatever. Looking proactively for 5 things her husband did well. A woman can do the same thing about her body and about her image. What are 5 things that are really great about you today? And have her write them down and have her start thinking about, wow, I'm not as bad as I think I am. There are a lot of good things happening here. And of course, this is not like a little pat yourself on the back, oh, you're so great, but really recognizing these good things and putting positive things in your mind. The scripture tells us to think on what is true, on what is noble, what is lovely.
Most of the culture will tell you that this change, if you're going to commit to this kind of a commitment to improve yourself, costs money. And in today's economy, this could be a budget breaker, and therefore they use that as an excuse not to move forward.
It certainly could cost money, no question about that. But there are so many cheap things you can do to improve your appearance and to improve your self-image. For instance, just by meditating on scripture, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I mean, how much does that cost to write that scripture on a piece of paper and put it on your mirror in the bathroom? It costs like nothing. So, and for you to say that every morning to yourself, I am fearfully and wonderfully made, tie that into a prayer that you are asking the Holy Spirit, show me, Lord, that I am fearfully and wonderfully made. If you have stairs in your house, they're free. You already paid for them. You can run up and down those stairs as much as you can. You can make yourself a home gym. You can get a DVD from the library. I just bought a gym membership at Costco to 24-Hour Fitness, and it's a 2-year membership for $299. It turns out to be $12 a month. Irresistible. So there are cheap ways to improve your appearance and to feel better about yourself.
How do you motivate yourself other than scriptures? Because being a mother, being a wife is already a full-time job. So other ways to make it fun to lose weight and kind of incorporate it into your daily routine, and also how to motivate.
Great. I think motivation, you have to kind of look at that reason within. It can't be because so-and-so told you to do it. You've got to be motivated yourself. One way to do that is kind of to go to the dark side of the moon. If I don't lose this weight, if I don't become stronger physically, what's going to happen to me? One of my girlfriends said, she had gained a lot of weight during her pregnancies, and she found that she could not run after that toddler. You go to a park, you put a ball in front of the kid, and he's gone. She could not keep up with him. And she realized, I have got to start exercising, or I'm not going to be able to keep up with this kid. So there are things, if you can kind of go to the dark side of the moon and say, is that what I want for my life? Do I want to struggle with health issues 30 years from now because I'm starting to gain weight now? Things like that. So get that motivation clear in your mind. It could be a lot. For me, my personal motivation was my sweet, dear husband, because he would tell me in a very loving, honest way, honey, after, I had 3 babies, 2 miscarriages, all within 7 years in my 30s. So my body was, going everywhere. And he would tell me honestly, you know what, sweetheart, it just means so much to me when I see you trying to exercise and watch what you eat so that you can get back to where you were. That really means a lot to me. So having that motivation of, I want to do my best. Now, practically speaking, how does this work to make it fun? I think if you can team up with friends, my husband and I have had Biggest Loser contests, usually after Christmas, and we say, okay, whoever can lose this much, the most weight in the month, they get massages, 1-hour massages, once a week for a month, whatever. Wow. So it's a pretty good prize. So we try to find things. Once we did it, my husband and I, against my parents. That was a fun one. And we made a chart, and everyone would weigh in every week. And this costs nothing. And again, the rewards were like massages and things like that. That also cost nothing.
All right,
and it was really
Let me interrupt you here. We're a little over on a break. Let me take a quick break, Arlene. We'll come back because we got a lot of questions to ask you. We're talking to Arlene Pellicane. She's authored a book, 31 Days to Younger You. No surgery, no diets, no kidding. And we'll get back to her in just a moment. We'll be right back.
Follow the conversation. This is Afternoon on the Dove. Follow the conversation. This is Afternoon on the Dove.
Well, we're back, and we have a very special guest with us today, Arlene Pellicane. She's authored a book called 31 Days to a Younger You, No Surgery, No Diets, No Kidding. It's a fascinating discussion. It's put out by Harvest House. You may want to get a copy of this book, and I think you'll find it to be really a great resource for you. She's on Skype with us today, so those of you watching on TV will be able to see how pretty she looks. And we also accompanied this afternoon with Polina is in the studio with me, and how pretty she looks, and she's the producer here. Arlene, I have a question. Most women, and we do a lot of interviews here, as you can imagine, through the years, you interview a lot of people. One thing I've come to realize that most women just really struggle with how they ultimately look or appear. It's a constant battle, and after they've gone through the makeover or they've gone and bought a new wardrobe, they're still not pleased. How do you overcome that?
Ooh, that's a tough one. A lot of it comes, it's like, wow, if you do all those things, a lot of it comes from just a woman having the knowledge that, you know what, nobody's perfect. Everybody's going to have some kind of fault that they don't like. I have these really dark spots on my knees, 2 big, black, dark pigmentations right on my knees. And as a result, I never wear dresses or skirts because I want people to see them, you know, and no one really knows about that, but that's something that would bother me, that they, I've got these big black spots on my knees, you know. So there are, all of us, everybody's got something. So to be able to realize, you know, everyone's got something, it's okay. Like, embrace being part of the I'm not perfect club, you know. So being able to laugh and joke about our imperfections, and then perhaps there are things that we're not happy with that we can actually change. And that's typically weight, because you look at a woman, and if she loses 10, 20 pounds, most likely she will look a lot younger. That's kind of your easy fix to things. But that can be very discouraging, because there's a real lack of hope in that area. Women think, wow, how am I ever going to get there? You know, so I interviewed a woman, Karen Amon. She's a speaker and an author, and she went from a size 24 to a size 10. And the way she did it was she got together with a group of girlfriends, and they called it Weigh and Pray. And every week they'd have that accountability to each other.
Weigh and pray.
And then pray about what they were doing, and she's kept it off for years. I think there's something about hope, that a woman's got to have hope that, yeah, if there's something I want to change, I could actually do that.
Is it true that a new pair of shoes solves everything?
Yeah, for me it's not. Some women it probably is. But of course, those are short-term changes, right? You buy something, you're happy for a few hours, and then the new catalog comes in the mail, and you're like, wow, I really need to go shopping. So much of it is to be able to be content without finding that contentment in something external. And then, of course, you're a woman, you like shopping, that's okay. And then, you know, you get a new dress that flatters your figure, that's a good thing, you know. So to be able to embrace both, not to be so like, oh, we can't have anything new, or, you know, we can't try a new style. You know, you can try those things, but just don't think your happiness is going to come from that.
Arlene, you have a ministry for women who want to lose weight after having babies, and you have a website, losingweightafterbaby.com. Right? And you just mentioned that you had, was it 5 pregnancies in 6 years. You have 2 children, 2 miscarriages. Can you tell us about the other one, the 5th pregnancy that you had?
Yes. I had trouble getting pregnant the first time and struggled with infertility, as so many women do. I never thought it would be me. I thought I would just want to have a baby and it would happen. And I found myself in a room with dozens of other couples that were struggling. I had surgery to remove a fibroid from my uterus, and then we had a healthy baby boy, so we were ecstatic. And when you wait for a baby and you get one, it's just all the more, cause for rejoicing. So when my husband and I were pregnant with our second, we were just, thrilled beyond belief. And his family, we live on the West Coast, his family lives on the East Coast, and they were visiting us the day before Thanksgiving, and we thought, wouldn't this be neat for them to come into see the ultrasound with us? So there we all were, waiting for this ultrasound, wanting to know, is it a boy or a girl? And the technician was very matter-of-fact and very sulky, actually. We thought, what is wrong with this person? And at the end, she said, it looks like you're having a girl, and she sent us home. Well, later that afternoon, we got a phone call from my doctor, and she said the ultrasound showed that something really is quite wrong with the baby, but the person in the technician was not able to tell you that. We'd like you to come back in for further ultrasound so that you have a better idea of what you're looking at before this long 4-day Thanksgiving weekend. So there we were the day before Thanksgiving, and when they looked at it, they told us, your baby has a lot of chromosomal defects. She has swelling all over her body, and most likely her heart will stop beating in a matter of days. I was 20 weeks along at that time, and no one expects to have that kind of news said to them on a day they thought was going to be so happy. And that morning, I had read a devotional at a Turning Point with David Jeremiah, and it was, one of those favorite verses we all have, trust in the Lord with all your heart. And I felt the Lord nudging me, that's for you today. So as I sat there and got that news, I kept thinking, trust in the Lord with all your heart. This baby is not mine, this baby is God's, and God will take care of this baby. The doctors commented, he said, I have to give a lot of bad news. They said, you and your husband seem to be taking this pretty good. What's going on? I said, you know what? We believe in a God who knows these things, who creates life, who knows that we can trust him with these kind of decisions. Well, I kept going back into the doctor because they told me that the baby would die very shortly, but appointment after appointment I would go and her heart was still beating. So we were praying, Lord, take her home to be with you. Lord, do a miracle and heal her, or Lord, give us grace to raise a child with special needs. And so that was Thanksgiving, and I carried her all the way through Christmas, which I was so happy with, because I really wanted to have her for that Christmas time, and I did. But after Christmas, I kind of felt like something was different, and we went back to the doctor, and she indeed had gone to be with the Lord. So at 26 weeks, we had lost her. So losing that child, we named her Angel Rose because she was like a messenger to us of God's grace and God's love, God's presence. And I'll tell you that time of saying goodbye to that little baby, I never experienced the presence of God in my life like that. I would walk to the mailbox, and God would be there. I would be in the shower, God would be there. I walk into church, the song would be exactly what my heart was crying out, everything. So I would just really encourage the woman, the man, the family that's going through a hard time. When you press into Jesus during those really difficult times, he will show up in ways that you cannot imagine.
So you did name the baby, and that was a very important thing for you to do.
Yes, to say goodbye, we named her Angel Rose, and we had a service to say goodbye to her. We went to the beach and we prayed, we sang, Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus. We had balloons go up in the air and reminded the kids that were present with us that Angel was in heaven and to look up, that she was at home. And we said goodbye, and that was an important part of healing and saying goodbye. I think to have some kind of memorial, some kind of closure when a woman miscarries is something that is very healthy and a moment that you can look back at and you can reflect on. I think that was very good.
So back to losing weight, how was it different for you after you had is it a stillbirth, right? How was it different from when you had your child? How was the process of losing weight?
Depressing, because when you're losing weight and you've had a child, you see, it all makes sense to you. But when you carry a child and you miscarry that child and you've packed on some pounds through that miscarriage, that's a lot more demotivating, because you feel like, man, I had to do all this and there's no payoff, there's no baby, no reward for this. But when that happens, so many women have miscarried. So many women come up to me and say, oh, I miscarried at 12 weeks. I miscarried at 14 weeks, So you just kind of have to be factual about it, to do your best to get the emotion out and to say, okay, let's do this, because the losing weight is about numbers. It's just about calories in and calories out. But emotionally, you're going through a hard time.
Is it that simple? Calories in, calories out? Really?
It's funny. If you think about it like math, you just figure, okay, if there's more calories coming in than going out, it's got to get stored somewhere. So finding a way to burn those calories and being more of a gatekeeper of what's coming in.
All right. Now, we hear and experience women who have a very hard time losing weight after a pregnancy. And in fact, there's a lot of excuses not to even fight that. Their body is now forever changed. I'm just going to live with this. But you not only are an advocate to go after it, but without a fad diet. So you obviously implemented something. I mean, did you go to all vegetables and orange juice? What'd you do here?
They'll ask me. Well, first of all, people will say, oh, you're so lucky you have it in your genes. And I'll think, yeah, going to the gym 6 days a week and eating, lettuce doesn't have anything to do with it, right? So one, it's not in your genes. And then two, I'm a normal person. I'm not like a nutritionist. I'm for all means not athletic at all. So I'm very tall. So everyone thought I would play basketball. I never played basketball in high school. So I'm very uncoordinated. Anything with wheels or a ball, I don't know what to do. So if I kind of always felt like if I could do this, anyone could do this. And basically I would try to do, I drink water. I don't drink sugary types of drinks. I love sweets. So people think I don't love sweets. I love sweets. But for periods of time, I would say, okay, for 2 weeks, then I'm not going to have dessert. And, you understand, so not forever in my life, but for a set period of time, I'm not going to have dessert. I don't eat out much when I'm trying to lose weight. So a lot of, if you eat out, it's so hard to keep the calorie intake low. So, finding things at home and then really snacking throughout the day, not allowing yourself to get so ravenously hungry. So, we're always in the mood for Doritos or ice cream or cookies. But if I ask myself, well, would I really munch on a head of broccoli right now? I guess I'm not really truly hungry. So for women to ask themselves those kinds of questions before they reach into the pantry for something. And that's another thing, is one of the things I talk about, it's all about access. People think I'm so virtuous. I'm not. If you put me in front of a free table full load of brownies, cookies, cake, I'll try everything, So it was really about getting it out of the house. So after babies are born, you got to get all that food out of your house, or else you're going to be in the pantry eating all day long. So bringing in a lot of fruits, a lot of strawberries, grapes, apples, eating almonds, nuts that are filling but still good for you, things like that.
All right, let me take a quick break. We'll be right back. Arlene Pellicane is with us today, and she's authored a book, 31 Days to Younger You, No Surgery, No Diets, No Kidding. And we'll be right back with our closing segment.
Follow the conversation. This is Afternoon on the Dove. Follow the conversation. This is Afternoon on the Dove.
Okay, we are back, and it's been really a hoot. We'll put it that way. And a delight to have with us today Arlene Pellicane. She's authored a book, 31 Days to a Younger You, No Dieting, no something else there. There you are. No surgery, no diets, no kidding. Arlene, this is fascinating. We're going to have to get you back because it's going too fast. But since we are simulcasting radio and television, I understand you have a picture of your family. You want to hold it up?
Here they are. This is my husband, James. We've been married for 12 years. Our son, Ethan, he's going into second grade already. My daughter, Noelle, who will start kindergarten, and Lucy, who is almost 2. And so the 2 girls were born after my miscarriage of Angel. So we often think if we would have had Angel, we would not have had Noelle. So we're very happy that the Lord gave us such a beautiful girl in Noelle, and also Lucy, our bonus.
Wow, congratulations. Beautiful family. Let me ask you this. One of the things that I've discovered doing shows through the years and dealing with counselors and a lot of women topics, women have a tendency to get bored with their life. They just, it's hard to believe. We live in America and yet we're bored. And but it is real. It's a real emotion. It's a real feeling. And especially as they get older and they enter into maybe the change of life, they enter into an empty nest syndrome. Maybe they've had a career change. They just feel like, ugh. What's your response to that?
It's so true. And I interviewed ladies for a chapter called What's Next about what do you do when the home that you've been working on for 20 years of your life is now empty? What do you do when you're in a job that you go to and you can do, but you don't love anymore? So for a lot of women, it's asking those hard questions and saying, what's next? And turning that from a kind of feeling of apathy or despair, like, oh, what's next, to anticipation of I can hardly wait until ... and really think and pray, journal, set goals, kind of figure out what is it that makes you tick? What do you love? You know, I have friends who they love to quilt, and a person that I wrote about, she's in this ministry called Prayers and Squares. She herself went through breast cancer, and someone gave her a quilt that had been made specifically for her. The women had prayed over every knot that they tied in that quilt, asking God to bless her during her chemotherapy. Well, she turned that into just a mission where now she quilts these things for people and gives them to people who are going through hard times. So really being able to connect something you really love doing with a purpose that you're passionate about, if you can do that as a woman, you will avoid being bored. You know, I wrote about another woman who quilts for missions, and she's 101.
Wow.
She's been quilting every week for the last 40 years. She still drives. I mean, this woman is amazing. So, you know, really, she's living proof to me that you don't have to be bored with life. You could be 101 and still be extremely effective and useful, you know. So finding those things, and if you're finding, man, that does not exist in my life, then instead of saying, wow, I'm really bored, it doesn't exist in my life, start brainstorming. Hey, we're women, we're good problem solvers. We can solve problems for our kids, but when it comes to ourselves, we're kind of all thumbs. You know, so to think through, you know, what are the things that I used to do? I would talk to ladies, I used to play volleyball, I haven't played in years. Well, why not pick that up again? You know, so whatever, perhaps there's a hobby that you could unearth. Maybe it's an old, you know, something you used to love to do. Maybe something new. My sister, she took a glass blowing class and she just loves that, you know. So everyone's going to have something different, but finding something new that's exciting for you is a really easy way to just squash that boredom.
You know, what's interesting, both my wife and I come from large family, 5 kids in my family, 6 kids in her family, and both of our mothers, after all the children were grown and gone, it was like the big... Now we all come back with our kids, and it's kind of like it starts all over again. But, you know, when you come from a large family, I think some moms just love the reprieve.
Yes. It's like, wow, it's like a new life.
Yeah.
You know? And to be able to view those transitions in that positive light, like, wow, I get to do this now, you know. So, of course, there are things that you always miss about your kids, but to be able to embrace it and say, what can I do now? For your mom, it'd be like, wow, what can I do now? No, I don't have 6 kids in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Arlene, first of all, I want to tell you that you look beautiful. Those who can't see you on TV, I would encourage to watch the program later today, because once they see you, the book is going to be sold out. Because you're a real example of how to keep the weight off after 5 pregnancies. And I'm being tortured here by Perry because he keeps reminding me to smile because I keep forgetting that we're on TV. So anyway, I want to go back to your book. What makes it different from other devotionals? Because it is in a way a devotional. It's an everyday read, right? You kind of live through the months with this book. What makes it unique?
I think that it looks at your heart, body, and mind all as a package, make it very unique, and that I weave stories. You know, here I am, 40, and I'm writing a book about looking younger. People are going to say to me, well, you look younger because you are young, you know. So I interviewed ladies in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, the 100-year-old that I spoke of that quilts, you know. So in this book, you're going to hear stories of women who are decades ahead of you, or perhaps right where you're at, and you're going to hear how they have triumphed, what new things they've learned, how they have, I have a friend, she's 65, and she went into Nordstrom, and she said, I hear the fashion now is that you don't wear pantyhose. Is that correct? She asked this in the shoe department. And the gentleman looked at her and said, well, for women your age, pantyhose is acceptable. And she went back, and she hasn't worn pantyhose since, So it's really funny. It has a lot of funny stories of real life women and what they are doing to look and feel younger.
Boy, can I relate. Just kidding. Let me ask you this. Do you drink coffee?
I do drink coffee, but this is actually very funny because I've not been a coffee drinker ever in my life, so I don't have a coffee maker. I drink instant, which will completely horrify people who are real coffee drinkers.
Yeah, like here.
I don't buy coffee. I don't buy coffee at Starbucks. That's only because I'm cheap. It's not because I don't like the coffee. My husband, on the other hand, is anti-coffee, anything that could be something you could be addicted to, so he gives me a hard time for drinking coffee. So I really have not drunk it, but throughout the pregnancies, what I would find is, okay, instead of eating, I'm going to drink a cup of coffee. And I figured a cup of coffee is better than eating all this stuff. So my definition is a cup a day, which to some, and that's not every day. So let's say I drink 5 cups a week, which people, I am sorry, but if you drink coffee, that's nothing. But to my husband, that's like, oh, my wife is a coffee drinker. So that's my long answer to your simple question.
Speaking of husbands, is there anything men can learn from this book?
They can. In fact, I've had women say, my husband kind of saw it in the house and he's reading it along with me, because aside from the fashion tips like the pantyhose we talked about, these things apply to men as well. Eating right, exercising, finding hobbies, things that you like. So for a husband and wife, it could be a fun thing to go through together, particularly the section about hobbies and picking up things that they could do together. That rejuvenates them, not only making them both feel younger, but it brings them closer together. In fact, my next book that I'm working on right now is 31 Days to a Happy Husband. So we'll have to talk about that one next summer. That's when that one comes out.
Arlene, one of the other things that women deal with, and I realize self-esteem's an issue, weight's an issue, appearance is an issue, fashion's an issue, dealing with weight loss after pregnancy, certainly an issue. But what about just stress? I mean, let's face it, we're living in America, and it's stressful times, and it can show up in a lot of ways. It can show up in your relationships, it can show up in your weight, it can show up in your blood pressure. How do you address the issue of stress?
I think one would be taking things off your plate that don't have to be there. We women are great. One of the ladies I interviewed, Karen Amon, said that women think that just because they're capable of doing something, they should say yes. So if someone says, will you cook this for us? You say yes. Can you serve on this committee? Yes. Will you do this after school program? Yes. And before you know it, the woman is completely stressed out of her mind, and she has very little to give to herself or to her husband or her family. Well, so Karen Amon says, when you are asked to do something, don't ask, can I do this? Ask, am I called to do this? Is this really hooking into my main core values in my life? And if it's not, then you say no to it. For instance, people ask me, Arlene, how do you have 3 children, ages 1, 4, and 6, and how do you write books? How is that possible? And the way that's possible is I don't serve on women's committees. I don't volunteer in my child's classroom. So there are things I have said no to in order to say yes to writing and speaking. So for a woman who is so stressed, one thing to ask would be, okay, look at your plate and all the things you've put on it, and what can you say no to? Now, you can't tell someone, oh, I just heard this thing on Dove, and I'm sorry, I can't cook that tomorrow. You have to be considerate of people, but to say to someone, you know what, I'm only going to be able to serve on this committee for another 3 months, and then I'm really going to need to step back because I'm getting kind of too crazy here. Think of it as a plate. It's really like the Thanksgiving plate, and it's so covered with food that you can't even see anything. And that's how Americans have built their lives, because we bought the lie that we have to be involved in every single activity under the sun. But instead, think of your plate as something really lovely, like when you go to a really nice restaurant and you can see that salmon and the pretty vegetables and the neat rice, whatever, but you can see it. And try to build your life like that, and you'll find the stress will naturally start thinning thinning out simply because you're taking things off your plate.
Well, Arlene, this has been fascinating. We'd love to get you back. I think we're just scratching the surface, and I think you are also ministering to a lot of women who are listening today and watching today. And you're a living example of what you've written about. And I think you're another example of something I say often on radio and television. Whatever God saves you from or brings you through, he usually turns around and makes you a minister to. And I think you've experienced everything that you've talked about today. So thank you so very much.
Thank you so much for having me. I'd love to come back.
We'll do it. Thank you again, Arlene, and thank you for Polina for being in the studio. Tomorrow is
Patrick Doyle.
Patrick Doyle,
Yeah.
and it's always interesting to have Patrick in. You never know what he's going to bring to the table, but we'll be taking your phone calls tomorrow as well. So be sure to join us here on Afternoons of Dove with Patrick Doyle. But again, the book, let me just put it up one more time. It is put out by Harvest House, and it's really like we said, a devotional. 31 days to a younger you, no surgery, no diet, no kidding, and Arlene Pellicane. So let me encourage you to get a copy of that, ladies, and I'm going to trust and wait for the new one to come out, 31 days to have a younger husband, did she say?
Is it younger or better?
Happy husband.
The younger
Happy?
is
Oh, you're
better.
still there? Oh, I didn't know you was here. Okay, so 31 days to a happier husband?
We're going to make you happy. Yes.
What's rule number one?
I'm working on it.
There are no rules for husbands.
Hey, call me, Arlene. I'll give you some tips.
Okay, that's good.
All right, thanks again for being with us, and thank you for watching and listening today, and we'll see you tomorrow.